Folks, the NBA draft is upon us. It is here, the 2025 NBA draft, one of the most hyped up classes in a long time. And we've been trying to look at this class, the picks last year. Everyone said, oh, just wait till we get to the 2025 class, which includes the number one overall pick, Cooper Flagg, who's going to be going to Dallas. We're going to be breaking down a full lottery mock draft. Before we do anything, this mock draft does not have trades, but I want to bring up possible trades that could go down during the draft or right before the draft, kind of with some of these picks that could shake things up, though my draft is just going to be with the current order because it's very hard to project some of these trades. Let's look at some of these possible trades really quick. I think one of the biggest ones could be Philadelphia trading down. A lot of people are saying they're going to trade the pick entirely. I still think they want to focus on a two-timeline plan where hopefully Paul George still has something left in him. You have Joel Embiid, you have Tyrese Maxey. Things didn't go well last year. Hopefully you stay healthy and contend while also trying to play for the future and kind of using Maxey in both timelines. I could very well see them trading down if they don't love anyone at number 3. Ace Bailey canceled his workout with Philadelphia. Maybe they don't want to take Bailey. Maybe you want to take a guy like Conkudeppel who could play off the ball, shoot the 3 ball, something they desperately need off the bench or kind of even in their starting lineup, frankly. And he can complement other scorers like Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey. So say they trade down to number 5. They also get 21. While Utah Jazz, they want a guy like Ace Bailey or a VJ Edgecombe to really boast its roster and try to accelerate its rebuild. So they trade up. Jazz get number 3. Philadelphia gets 5 and 21. I think the deal makes sense because Philadelphia also adds some more depth this way. And then the last one I think is very interesting, and I don't know how likely it is. We've heard, rumors, this, that, and the other thing. But how about Giannis Antetokounmpo? He could be out the door in Milwaukee. We've heard these rumors. He said things. We just really don't know. So, folks, buckle up to hear a lot of names, or just a lot of assets in general. San Antonio trades Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley, their number 2 overall pick, their number 14 overall pick, 2026 first-round pick, 2027 pick from Atlanta, their 2029 first-round pick, and a 2031 first-round swap, all for the Greek freak, 2-time NBA MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Now the Spurs go all in because they don't need a guy like Dylan Harper. They already have De'Aaron Fox and Steph Castle in their backfield, so they don't need to draft a guy like Dylan Harper at number 2. Now, if they can't trade him, of course they will take him because he's a number 1 type guy. We'll break that down in a minute. But they don't need either of their first-round picks. So they go all in. Their first-round picks that they're giving up, some are from Atlanta, but others are in years where they should be contending with their core, so they aren't that valuable anyway. They keep their core intact, San Antonio, just get rid of Johnson, but Giannis will kind of replace his presence in a sense. Meanwhile, if you're Milwaukee, you get one of the best talents in this entire draft in Dylan Harper, who would be in number 1 in most draft classes to kind of jumpstart this rebuild, and you gain control of 6 first-round picks. That's a really decent haul for Giannis Antetokounmpo and one that in today's trade market I would expect. I think it works for both teams. Chums did say this could be one of the craziest off seasons in NBA history. And if this does go down around draft night, it really could be one of the craziest trades in NBA history. So stay tuned for that. Now, however, though, say no trades do happen and it's just the same lottery order. Here's what my mock draft would be. First overall, the Dallas Mavericks are trading. No, I'm just kidding. They're taking Cooper Flagg, forward from Duke, the clear top prospect, the 3-level scorer, a versatile defender. We all know what he could do. However, it's not likely that the number 1 overall pick is the top pick from the class. Take Zion Williamson in 2022 or in 2019, or take some guys in kind of some previous classes as well. The number 1 overall pick is not always this prized possession that people make it out to be. We'll see what Zachary Risache turns out to be, but who knows kind of what his value is long term. Yes, some years you have guys like Victor Wembanyama, but not everyone is always solidified top guy at number 1 overall. Cooper Flagg, though, was definitely a must-take here. I'm going to have a concern for each prospect. There's not many concerns considering Cooper Flagg's a really well-rounded player. He was one of the best players in the country at Duke as a freshman last year. But I guess my biggest thing is his play in the clutch. He missed some shots in the Final Four, down the stretch. Obviously he was called for that foul down the stretch in the Final Four, and he did not play well in the biggest moments. Now, he didn't have many of those. I don't think it's a long-term concern, but if this does end up being something critical, you want your superstar to be able to make the shots down the stretch. And if he can't, that's a problem. But Dallas jumpstarts their kind of 2-timeline direction by drafting Cooper Flagg, clearly the best prospect from this class. San Antonio, if they do decide to hold on to number 2, they will take Dylan Harper. Now, they don't need him, but he's usually a number 1 pick in every other class except for one that has Cooper Flagg. He has great athleticism and agility. He's the number 1 pick in most drafts, not even just against He's just not against. He's not going to be that when he goes against Cooper Flagg. He's taller for a guard. He has a high ceiling as a two-way combo guard, and he's a great playmaker and finisher. Now his shot needs a lot of work. However, that could be fixed in San Antonio with their great development. So if they decide to hold on to the pick, Dylan Harper, guard from Rutgers, will go too. Now, third overall, again, this could be a pick that could very well be traded by Philadelphia. However, if they decide to hold on to the pick, I think, and don't trade down. You stay at number 3. I don't think you reach on a guy like Kneppel. I think you take the guy who you should be taking, and that is Ace Bailey. I know some people haven't mocked this. This was mocked for a while until it wasn't. But Ace Bailey, a forward from Rutgers, he doesn't always have a great shot selection. He's not great at decision making. However, he does make the difficult shots. He's athletic. He's a versatile forward. He has defensive upside, though he wasn't a great defender. This is definitely a project. It's a very raw player. He was very inconsistent at the college level. He made 54% of his free throws in his first 13 college games. Now that was up at 82% for the rest of the year. But this is still a guy where you have defensive upside, but the defense just wasn't there. It's a guy who could be a great shooter, but had to take a lot of difficult shots. So this is a guy who, it's definitely a project. You have to wait some time for it, but if Philadelphia can't trade down, you have to take the best talent on the board. And Ace Bailey is without doubt at number 3, the best talent on the board. A 4th overall, the Charlotte Hornets, they take VJ Edgecombe. This is a guy who was on some mock drafts pretty high, but now it looks like he could go number 3 or number 4 overall if that's a direction they decide to go in. You look at a guy like VJ Edgecombe. He's athletic with great playmaking potential. I think he could complement LaMelo Ball really well. I would put VJ Edgecombe at point guard and put LaMelo Ball kind of a shooting guard because I think VJ Edgecombe could be a better playmaker, but LaMelo's a better shooter. They complement each other either way. What I love about VJ Edgecombe, he can attack the basket fearlessly, and he has very high defensive potential, which that's going to be really huge if this is a long-term plan between him and LaMelo Ball because LaMelo is not a strong defender, to say the least. The concern is just his consistency on both ends, but I think that will just come with time. I think a lot of these prospects coming out of college are not very consistent. They're not very polished, but they have a lot of raw talent. And I do think VJ Edgecombe is one of, if not the most polished talent in this entire class. And I think if you're Charlotte, all of a sudden you have VJ Edgecombe, LaMelo Ball, you have Mark Williams at center, you have Brandon Miller if he could stay healthy. You obviously see what some other guys, to Jane Saloon. Let's see what he has in store. And maybe you have your future core. Maybe you can get to the play at some point, because I think at that point, once you draft VJ Edgecombe, you're hoping this can be your core to rebuild for the future. At 5th overall for the Utah Jazz, again, if they're not going to trade up, I like Kneppel here. He can shoot the ball really well, can complement other scorers and work off the ball. What you have to understand with a guy like Kneppel is I don't think his ceiling is as high as others in this class. He is not going to be a number 1 on a championship team type guy, but he can complement some others, and his 6'7" frame provides incredible defensive potential and versatility. And he's technically considered a guard because he's such a great shooter. And he can, again, obviously move off the ball, which is great. So the concern is he's just not very athletic. He can't really create his own shot. And that's why he's not at that number 1 player. He's going to need someone else to kind of help him. However, you see guys like Klay Thompson in the past who are very great contributors on a championship team. Kneppel will be a very, very solid player at the NBA level, but you need someone else there. So Utah would have to know that this is not, their long-term number 1 answer, but it could be a great player to kind of add, especially as they're trading Lauri Markkanen and definitely entering that rebuilding phase. At 6th overall, it was heartbreaking when I saw my Washington Wizards fall to the number 6 pick, which is their worst possible scenario. But right now, they seem laser focused on grabbing Jeremiah Fears, this very ball-dominant offensive playmaker. He can attack the rim with the best of them with physicality and aggressiveness. He's very clutch. He had a game winner against Michigan earlier this season and played really well in the SEC tournament and played really well against UConn in the NCAA tournament. The concern for him is just he's not a very efficient shooter across the board, but just like we were talking about with VJ Edgecombe's consistency, something like shooting inefficiencies, that will get better as he continues to have more years at the NBA level. At 7th overall, I think the Pelicans, they traded with Indiana to get the 23rd overall selection in the NBA draft, so now they have 2 first-round picks. I would, if I'm New Orleans, do whatever I could to get Trey Johnson, because I personally think with his off the court issues and their situation, Zion Williamson, this would be the time to trade him, right? Try to get whatever you can for him, because he has been kind of disappointing from the number 1 pick. You haven't won anything in the playoffs with him. I don't even know if he's played a playoff game just with his injuries. Hasn't been great conditioning wise, but he has the talent. Maybe try to get rid of him now. But if it is true that they are trying to build around him and they want to build a roster around him, as they're saying, then this is what you do. no matter what, you get Trey Johnson because he would complement Zion Williamson so well and work so well with him in the pick and roll because Trey Johnson has incredible facilitating potential. He's an incredible ball handler, an incredible shooter. He's very athletic. He can move without the ball. I get they have DeJounte Murray, but I even think they could coexist at guard because they kind of play two different styles, kind of work in two different ways. And of course, what you got to love about Trey Johnson is he is clutch. He has that it factor, as people say, that ice in his veins mentality that could be really good for a team that, since trading away Brandon Ingram, doesn't have that go-getter scorer down the stretch of games. And again, if you're really seriously hoping to contend, Trey Johnson could come in immediately and really help this Pelicans team. I don't even think they need to trade up. I think they could get him right here at number 7. The only concern is I think his shot selection leaves a lot to be desired. But just like some of these other guys, that could also be something that could be improved once you get more experience at the NBA level. I wouldn't do it, but if you are going to really go all in on the Zion Williamson era, whatever you need to do, New Orleans, draft Trey Johnson. 8th overall for the Brooklyn Nets. I think they select center Kaman Maluach from Duke. He's a raw defensive prospect. He started playing basketball just 5 years ago, so this guy is a project. But if it is true that Nick Claxton could be out the door and the Nets don't want to have his contract kind of on their franchise anymore, Maluach would be the type of guy to get. He moves really well at 7'2". He's hardworking, aggressive, tenacious. He has great rim protecting potential, though statistically he had just 1.3 blocks last year at Duke. And I think that you'd have to know if you're Brooklyn. Look, you're getting rid of a guy like Nick Claxton, who's proven to be one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. You have to know this is a project type of deal because his decision-making, with him just starting playing basketball a few years ago, his decision-making leaves a lot to be desired. He oftentimes gets in foul trouble. Again, and then a lot of the things that you see about him statistically, it did not translate at the collegiate level. It will take him a few years to really get up to speed, but I think he could be a Rudy Gobert type guy if he can really settle in and become that dominant defensive anchor for Brooklyn. And I know they would want a guy like Jeremiah Fears, but if Maluach is available and you want to move on from Nick Claxton, you have to take him here. Or you could take Derek Queen, but personally, I'm more of a fan of Maluach for their situation. But don't worry, Derek Queen, you're not going that far after. At 9th overall for the Toronto Raptors, I have them taking the Maryland center. I mean, look, he is a versatile talent. He could finish at the rim. He's great in the post, a good rebounder. He could switch defensively. And what I love about him, and not many people know this, is he has a lot of playmaking and facilitating potential. He's by far the best passer and ball handler out of a draft in a long time in terms of a center of his size to be able to have those kind of skills. We usually don't see that. And not even Victor Wembanyama is an incredible passer. Like, Derek Queen does have a really, really great skill set, and I wouldn't go as far as comparing it to Nikola Jokic, but definitely could provide some playmaking potential 100%. The concern for Derek Queen is it's like, what position? Because he's not really that athletic, so he's not athletic enough to be a wing. And he's not a good enough shooter to be a wing either. But he's also a really undersized at the big and could get bullied at the NBA level by some 7'7" guys. Even just in terms of height, how can he keep up? And, like, what's your ceiling at that point? I mean, DeMarcus Cousins isn't even that short. I mean, I could very well see him being like a Naz Reid type guy if things go really well. Naz Reid is a starting center on an NBA conference finals team where he's a good shooter, a good playmaker, can work on the perimeter, but is also a center, but again, can't just play in the interior, because if he just plays in the interior, then he's going to get bullied by other bigs. So I think that's his ceiling. But if you're Toronto, Jakob Poeltl's currently your center. You want a guy who has some playmaking potential and that could really work out at that position. And to do that, you snag Derek Queen from Maryland at number 9. At number 10, watch out for the Houston Rockets to trade this pick, considering they were a number 2 seed this year. Maybe you want to go all in and try to capitalize on this era. But if they do keep it, I personally like Colin Murray-Boyles from South Carolina. He's a smart and versatile defensive wing, a good playmaker and scorer in the post and the interior, and he is a decent rebounder. To me, he complements Amen Thompson really well in terms of guys who you want on the perimeter. I think they need another wing scorer and a guy like that. The problem is Houston does need, I think, some more shooting on this team, because Jalen Green is not always an efficient shooter. Amen Thompson is not always an efficient shooter. You can count on Fred VanVleet, but Dylan Brooks isn't an efficient shooter. Alperen Şengün isn't an efficient shooter. So, like, the guys they have in this court are not efficient shooters, and that's why they can only go so far in terms of their three-point shooting. So would they end up taking a guy like Colin Murray-Boyles, who's not a great shooter? I don't know. That would be his concern overall as a player. But I think if you are just focusing on the part that they need a wing, Colin Murray-Boyles could go as high as number 10 overall. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, what is happening with Kasparas Jakučionis? I think he's going right here at number 11 to the Portland Trailblazers. You're probably like, Chase, they have a gazillion guards. They have Anfernee Simons, and they have Shaedon Sharpe, and then, they have Scoot Henderson. And I get it. They have a ton of guards on that team. But with a guy like Kasparas Jakučionis, if he is available, you have to capitalize on that. Because the one thing he could do, he is a very, very good shooter, very, very efficient from the free throw line, and should be a very, very good three-point shooter as well. All of his tendencies in college say that should be the case. The Blazers are one of the worst three-point shooting teams in the NBA. So to get a shooter like that is huge. You don't need a guard, but at some point you just have to take the best guy available, because he also does have some playmaking potential, which long-term I think could really work well with Donovan Clingan. Overall, the concern is just the turnovers. I mean, this stat's going to blow your mind. He had more turnovers than buckets in 10 different games last year as a freshman at Illinois. He's very inconsistent. You don't know what you're getting out of him. But if he can kind of settle in, he could be a future, shooting, playmaking type guard that could really hit a high ceiling if things do go right. And to me, if you are, eventually Anfernee Simons, I mean, these guys haven't really, they've kind of plateaued in a sense. If you want to take a guy who could maybe be that future guard next to Scoot Henderson, who hasn't even hit his potential yet either, I would take Jakučionis if he's available at number 11. At 12th overall, I've seen this mocked in a few different places. I love the thought of Arizona forward Carter Bryant going to the Chicago Bulls at number 12. They need a wing scorer. Patrick Williams' offensive game never really panned out. And they have guards, right? You have Josh Giddey, you have Kobe White, you have other guys on this team who can work, but you really just need a wing scorer. And that's what Carter Bryant does, and he moves really well without the ball, which is okay because guys like Kobe White and Josh Giddey could get him the ball with their incredible playmaking skills. Bryant's a great catch-and-shoot shooter. He could attack the basket. And what I love is his versatility. Him and Cooper Flagg were the only freshmen last year in the NCAA tournament with 3 dunks and 3 threes during March Madness. So, he's a versatile guy. The concern is he can't create or make many looks himself. So, I mean, eventually your ceiling is just limited when you're not a great shot creator. But again, he has guys around him that can allow him to be a great shooter. I see in Carter Bryant maybe a poor man's Desmond Bane. Like, maybe he never gets that good, but a guy who could play some decent defense, move really well without the ball, complement other stars, will need playmakers to get him the ball, but could also be a really, really efficient three-point shooter if things do go right. And to me, if you're Chicago, a team that needs three-point shooting and a wing scorer, Carter Bryant does do really well in both of those facets. I think he's the perfect pick for Chicago, and I think he'll be available. So if you're Chicago and you stay at 12 and you don't take Carter Bryant, that would be an interesting decision. I'd definitely try to take him. At 13th overall for the Atlanta Hawks, you have to say, look, if Igor Demin, guard from BYU, if he's available at number 13, you just have to take him at some point, because the Hawks, by taking the 6'9" Demin, they prepare for the current time and they prepare for the future, because they're not trading Trae Young. It looks like they want to try to win right now. This is a team that was consistently in the playoffs. They blew the play-in tournament and everything last year. But what you get out of Demin is you get a great playmaker, a guy who can move without the ball. He's great defensively, which is huge playing next to Trae Young, and he's a bigger guard, which will allow him to play well next to Trae Young. And his key concern is he struggles to create his own shot. You see that with a lot of these different guys. But for now, you have Trae Young and Zachary Reese-Shea. He may not need to create his own shot currently, and I think you could help them try to win now, but also at the same time, his potential as that playmaker and as that facilitator allows him to possibly be a really, really great point guard in future years. And if the Hawks decide to move on from Young in a year or two, Demin could be in a position to take over the keys of the franchise and really try to make something happen with Zachary Reese-Shea. You're kind of focusing on the 2-timeline strategy right here if you're taking Igor Demin. And I've seen him as mocked as high as 9 or 8th overall. So if he's here at 13, I think if you're the Atlanta Hawks, you got to try and take him. And at 14th overall, watch out for the Spurs to trade this pick. They don't need this pick. If they keep 2, they certainly don't need number 14. But if they are going to keep it, I think they take Noah Asong. He's a very athletic wing type player, a tall wing type player. He can attack the rim. He's a great driver. That's probably his best skill. His shot has shown signs of life with frequent improvement. Now, it still needs some work, as the shooting statistics haven't translated in his play overseas. But he has shown signs of improvement over the years, maybe saying representing that he could be a good three-point shooter down the line. He's very good defensively. He can guard many positions, and he is a really, really good playmaker. The concern is simply his game's not polished. He's a project, given the fact that his shooting still needs a decent amount of work. But if you're the Spurs and you can't trade this pick, why not why not take a project for the future? Because if you're not going to go all in for a guy like Giannis, you have a little bit of time. You have about a year or two. And who knows what Noah Asong is in a year or two, because a lot of these guys from international basketball, they play with great effort and tenacity, and Noah Asong does that. And if you could somehow figure out something with that shot, he could end up doing some great things. And plus, you may have some room, as if you're not happy with Jeremy Sohan, you could move him and things of that nature. So Again, number 2 and number 14 might not be San Antonio's on draft night, but if they are going to use them, I would use Dylan Harper at number 2 and Noah Asong at number 14. Folks, that's the lottery. Hope you guys did enjoy. That's my lottery mock draft. You guys will see it on the screen here real quick, but let me just go over it as I'm saying it. No doubt, Cooper Flagg goes number 1 to Dallas. Dylan Harper goes 2 to San Antonio if they keep the pick. If Philly keeps the pick, Ace Bailey goes to them, the forward for Rutgers. At 4th overall, VJ Edgecombe goes to Charlotte to play next to LaMelo Ball. 5th overall, Utah takes Con Kneppel as they really start to accelerate their rebuild. At 6th overall, Washington stays laser focused on Jeremiah Fears to take the guard from Oklahoma. At 7th overall, the New Orleans Pelicans take Trey Johnson to play in the pick and roll with Zion Williamson. At 8th, the Brooklyn Nets take Kaman Malawach, a great defensive big, and this would kind of be with the contingency of the letting go of Nick Claxton sooner rather than later. At 9th overall, another center goes off the board. The Toronto Raptors find their center of the future, the playmaking Derek Quaid, who once he kind of figures out what position he wants to play at the NBA level, could be a really strong player for them. 10th overall, if the Houston Rockets do keep the pick, they take South Carolina wing Colin Murray-Boyles to kind of add to some of their wings, like Amen Thompson, as an example. At 11th overall, Portland takes Kasparis Yakuchonis, who would really be huge for them, a great shooter and a guy who could work with Donovan Clingan on the pick and roll. At 12th overall, the Bulls, they need wing scoring. Carter Bryant provides that from Arizona. At 13th, Igor Demin, if he's available, he could play next to Trae Young and be the future point guard down the line. So Atlanta takes that shot toward the end of the lottery. And with the last pick of the lottery, if San Antonio keeps number 14, they take Noah Asong. Hopefully you guys saw that on the board as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the 2025 Lottery NBA Mock Draft. Tomorrow is the NBA Draft. I cannot believe it. So please, the NBA Draft is right here. Please be sure to subscribe. We're going to have some more content right here on Chase's Sports News. Please be sure to do that. If you're listening on audio platforms, again, go to YouTube, subscribe to Chase's Sports News. A lot of great content coming this summer, and you are not going to want to miss it. Signing off here from Chase's Sports News, I am your host, Chase Coburn, saying so long with the NBA Draft upon us.